when you've raised all the forests, silenced all the birds, destroyed creations that came before your words, when you stamped to the ground all the things you fear, one thing to be sure of, I'll still be here. Remember the treaties you have made with me. As long as grass grows and the sky is blue and rivers run free, does this not mean forever? Or did we not agree? Will lies and broken promises be your legacy? Who am I, your honor? Who am I, your grace? Who do you see standing here as you look upon my face? Hear me, Mr. President, this is sacred ground. You cannot own my spirit, though you might lay me down. So take all your children, teach them your lives, why waters are polluted, smog fills the skies. You can drain all the oceans and fill them with tears. You will never remove me, I'll always be here. So when you seat your council, who will come to speak for the buffalo, the eagle, the forest and the trees, the oceans and their bounty, for all who here abide, and for all the children who stand here at our side? Who am I, your honor? Who am I, your grace? Who do you see standing here as you look upon my face? Hear me, Mr. President, this is sacred ground. You cannot own my spirit, though you might lay me down. You cannot take my spirit, this is sacred ground.
Good morning and welcome to Mount Vernon Unitarian Church. I'm Becky Brandt and I'll serve as your guide this morning. Whether you are new to our community or a longtime member, no matter what prompted you to set aside this time and join us in worship, know that you are welcome here. We especially welcome our visitors this morning. You're invited to stay after the virtual worship for our social hour. And if you'd like to be in touch with us, send an email to info@mvuc.org. We are a community dedicated to welcoming the stranger and working for justice. In this time of uncertainty, when we're unable to gather in person, we gather virtually to find comfort and recommit ourselves to the mission of supporting one another on our spiritual journeys, working for the care of the earth, and building the common good. It is good to be together. This morning, it's my great pleasure to welcome the team of Beck Mordini and Pam Tinker to our pulpit. Beck Mordini has been a member of MVUC since 2017. She's a founding member of the Climate Action Team, and she grew up in this area and went to Mount Vernon High School, but spent most of her adult life in Boulder, Seattle, and Santa Barbara. She's a founder of the Boulder nonprofit Climbing for Life and a nonprofit marketing and communications professional. She has one son, Casey, who graduated from UCLA last year. And Pam Tinker is a longtime member of MVUC, a citizen of the Cherokee Nation, a licensed physical therapist, and founder of Frog Pond, an outdoor nature-based early childhood education nonprofit program. She's married to Bruce Tinker and has 2 adult children, Robbie and Becca, who grew up attending MVUC. For those who need live transcription, you can click on the button at the bottom of your screen to turn that on. Even though we are still worshiping together in the virtual world, I'd like to raise up the importance of staying engaged. I invite you to take time each week to look at the emails on how you can remain connected to our community and read the Sunday Bulletin. As it is our custom, please mute your microphone and turn off your cameras to allow you to move about without distracting others. At the end of the service, after the postlude, we'll invite you to turn on your cameras so you can see each other and give a virtual hug and wave. Please wait till you hear the prompt to turn on your camera. I invite you now to take a deep breath with me as we enter into our time of worship.
Good morning. Please join us in singing hymn 1069 from your teal hymnal or from your screen. Ancient Mother, I hear you calling. Ancient Mother, I hear your song. Ancient Mother, I feel your laughter. Ancient Mother, I taste your tears. Ancient Mother, I hear you calling. Ancient Mother, I hear your song. Ancient Mother, I feel your laughter. Ancient Mother, I taste your tears. Ancient Mother, I hear you calling. Ancient Mother, I hear your song. Ancient Mother, I feel your laughter. Ancient Mother, I taste your tears.
Let us join our voices in the covenant found on the screen and in your heart.
Love is the teaching of this church.
The quest of truth is its daily task, and service is its prayer.
To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom.
To serve life in community, to the end that all souls shall grow in harmony.
This is our covenant with each and with all.
Hi, my name is Pam Tinker. I would like to tell you a story about hiding in plain sight. Sometimes when you feel very different from everyone around you, you can hide by blending in. The t-shirt that I am wearing is a little joke about the difference between how I see the world and how the majority is so different, and how sometimes I would like to squash some of their ideas. In Cherokee culture, we revere plants who give us life and keep us healthy. The 3 sisters, corn, beans, and squash, are the plants who grow together and care for each other and provide food for us humans. The patriarchy is a name for people who have power over that culture and make it very hard for us to live as we feel we should. The patriarchy likes monocultures. That means that everything looks or acts the same as the way they like it. Here is how my neighbor's front yard looks. It follows the rules of the patriarchy. When I think of all the chemicals that go into the Potomac in order to make the monoculture, it makes me very sad. In Fairfax County, it was illegal to grow food in your front yard until the Board of Supervisors changed that in June 2019. That's just 2 years ago. Now it is legal to grow food in your front yard as long as it is 15 feet from the edge of your property and you do not grow more than 10 feet by 10 feet plot. That is the size of about 2 ping pong tables side by side. In my yard, the sun is on the front yard side, so I decided to grow food where it would grow. But because the patriarchy honors monoculture and thinks that nature's abundance is unsightly, I had to make it look like a lawn with flower beds, shrubs, and trees to make it acceptable from the road. We have a lawn service that comes every week and makes sharp edges around the walkways and beds, and they keep the grass mowed short, just like we are supposed to. But wait, if you look closely at those bushes at the end of the driveway, there are blueberries growing in them. Oh my. And uh-oh, that tree is growing apples. Not only one kind of apple, but 5 kinds, all grafted to the same trunk. And oh no, there are plums growing on that tree near the porch. And that tree that hides the porch from the road, it has figs growing on it. And when the fig tree gets all those big leaves on it, the vegetable garden that is behind it is not visible from the road. By the time it loses its leaves in the winter, all of the vegetables have died. So there's nothing there to see other than herbs that look like flower bed plants, such as rosemary. So hidden behind the fig tree in plain sight from our porch are oregano, dill, parsley, basil, Swiss chard, red leaf lettuce, horseradish, tomatoes, chives, and fennel. And under the apple tree, there are fern-like plants that sprout up to provide asparagus every spring. Every year, we convert a plot of lawn into living habitat. Last fall, we planted a dwarf peach tree in a little kidney-shaped flower bed with native tick seed flowers. This spring, 50 strawberry roots arrived for planting, and they will make a ground cover that also gives us strawberries. In a shady area, we have peppermint for our tea and sweet woodruff. Tucked away below the level of the walkway is a little pond with goldfish in it who eat mosquito larvae. Water is life for wildlife and people too. We cannot live without it. We watch the flying and four-legged and crawling creatures come to drink from it at the end of the day. Frogs and lizards and dragonflies lay their eggs in it and meanwhile help us to keep the bug population down. The corns, beans, and squash were recently planted from seeds of the Cherokee Candy Roaster traditional squash that was so big and sweet and delicious. From a cob of Cherokee White Eagle corn, and beans from the previous year, the Three Sisters. They are happiest together, not in rows by themselves. The corn grows tall and provides a pole for the beans to climb. The beans provide nitrogen for the corn and squash to grow. And the squash covers the ground so no weeds can grow to choke corn and beans. These are pictures of the Three Sisters from another year. When we moved here 7 years ago, it was quiet and dead. We did not see living animals or hear birds song. Since then, every year there are more living beings that Mother Earth supports. We have wrens, hummingbirds, cardinals, mockingbirds, chickadees, lizards, frogs, and fish in our tiny pond. Pollinators, including butterflies, bees, moths, and fruit-robbing raccoons and deer. And this year, cicadas. So now you understand my joke, corn, beans, squash, patriarchy. Sometimes you can do what you know is right by hiding in plain sight. Hi, my name is Pam Tinker. I would like to tell
Mount Vernon Unity. Mount Vernon Unitarian Church shares the plate with committed organizations that our members have chosen. For the month of June, we will be donating to the Faith Alliance for Climate Solutions, splitting our offering 50-50 between them and MVUC unless otherwise directed by you. You may donate through your online church account, your phone via text, or by check. Information is found on the slide and in the chat box. During this time of music, we invite you to name at home or in the chat box the joys and sorrows you tenderly hold in your heart.
We'll begin with at the We'll begin with at the beginning with the creation story. And this is an excerpt from the first chapter of the book, Skywoman Falling, which is a piece of the creation story which is told by indigenous peoples throughout the eastern forest. She fell like a maple seed pirouetting on an autumn breeze. A column of light streamed from a hole in the sky world, marking her path where only darkness had been before. But in that emptiness, there were many, gazing up at the sudden shaft of light, and they saw there a small object, a mere dust mote in the beam. And as it grew closer, they could see that it was a woman, arms outstretched, long black hair billowing behind as she spiraled toward them. The geese nodded at one another and rose as one from the water in a wave of goose music. She felt the beat of their wings as they flew beneath and broke her fall. Far from the only home she'd ever known, she caught her breath at the warm embrace of soft feathers. And so it began. From the beginning of time, we are told that the very first encounter between humans and other beings of the earth was marked by care and responsibility, borne on the strong wings of geese. The world at that time was covered entirely by water. The geese could not hold Skywoman much longer, so they called a council of all beings to decide what to do. Loons, otters, swans, beavers, fish of all kinds. A great turtle floated in the water a gathering, and he offered to let her rest upon his back, and so gratefully she stepped from the goose wings onto the dome of the turtle. The others understood that she needed land for her home. The deep divers among them had heard of mud at the bottom of the water and agreed to retrieve some. The loon dove to get a beakful, but the distance was too far, and after a long time he surfaced with nothing to show for his efforts. One by one the other animals offered to help, the otter, the beaver, the sturgeon, but the depth, the darkness, and the pressures were too great for even these strongest of swimmers, who came up gasping for air and their heads ringing. Soon only the muskrat was left, the weakest diver of all. He volunteered to go while the others looked on doubtfully. His little legs flailed as he worked his way downward. He was gone a very long time. They waited and waited for him to return, fearing the worst for their relative. And before long, a stream of bubbles rose from the water, and the small, limp body of muskrat floated upward. He had given his life to aid this helpless human. But the others noticed that his paw was tightly clenched, and when they opened it, there was a small handful of mud. Turtle said, "Here, put it on my back, and I will hold it." Skywoman bent and spread the mud across the shell of the turtle. Moved by gratitude by the gifts of the animals, she sang in thanksgiving and then began to dance, her feet caressing the earth with love. As she danced her thanks, the land grew and grew from the dab of mud on Turtle's back. And so the earth was made, not by one alone, but from the alchemy of the animals' gifts and human gratitude. Together they created what we know today as Turtle Island. Our oldest teachings remind us that reciprocity is the thread that binds us together. They were her life raft at the beginning of the world, and now, so much closer to the end, we must be theirs.
On the day I was born, said my father, said he, I've an elegant legacy waiting for ye. 'Tis a rhyme for your lips and a song breathe to a child. Oh, the lure of that song kept her feet running wild. For you never grow old, and you never stand still, with whippoorwill singing beyond the next hill. Look to the rainbow, follow it over the hill and stream. Look to the rainbow, follow the fellow who follows a dream. So I bundled me heart, and I roamed the world free, to the east with the lark, to the west with the sea. And I searched all the earth, and I scanned all the skies, but I found it at last in my one true love's eyes. Look to the rainbow, follow it over the hill and stream. Look to the rainbow, follow the fellow who follows a dream. Follow the fellow, follow the fellow, follow the fellow who follows a dream.
Good morning. I was raised by dandelions. One of my earliest memories is picking huge bouquets of dandelions for my mother. No matter how full my little 5-year-old fists were, there were always plenty of dandelions. I learned abundance and generosity. Dandelions were to reveal many more lessons as I grew. Dandelion greens in my salad, dandelion tea for my liver, all this food and medicine hiding in plain sight. This is the way you start to look at your life after reading Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. Today's service, Skywoman and the Children of Eve, is based on the first story from this book. Kimmerer is an enrolled member of the Citizen Potawatomi Nation, a Native American people originally from the Great Lakes region. She has a PhD in plant ecology, is a mother, teacher, and writer. When I first heard the story of Skywoman, I was struck by how different it is from the creation stories I know. It didn't even have a deity, no god or goddess, no all-powerful, all-knowing being demanding obedience or worship. Just a woman, some aquatic animals, and seeds. The story I grew up with in my illustrated children's Bible tells how God our Father created the world with a lovely paradise garden for us. But Eve, a foolish and disobedient woman, got us kicked out of paradise. The plants and animals weren't really important in this story. I'm not sure if I ever believed Genesis literally. Science had provided much more convincing stories, like the Big Bang and evolution, when I was growing up in the 70s. And yet, Skywoman's story made me wonder, just how much has that Genesis story shaped my world, the Western world? Robin Wall Kimmerer describes the differences in the stories this way. Quote, one story leads to the generous embrace of the living world, the other to banishment. One woman is our ancestral gardener, a co-creator of the good green world that would be the home of her descendants. The other was an exile, just passing through an alien world on a rough road to her real home in heaven. And then they met, the offspring of Skywoman and the children of Eve, and the land around us bears the scars of that meeting, the echoes of our two stories. They say that hell hath no fury like a woman scorned, and I can only imagine the conversation between Eve and Skywoman. Sister, You got the short end of the stick, end quote. When I went back to reread the adult version of Genesis through the eyes of Skywoman, I felt cheated. For example, from Genesis 3, after cursing Eve, God says to Adam, "Cursed is the ground because of you. Through painful toil, you will eat food from it all the days of your life." This story is terrible. From misogyny to an actual curse that pits man against nature for all time, the children of Eve definitely got the short end of that stick. Whether people today believe the Genesis story, literally, metaphorically, archetypally, or not at all, this story has shaped our civilization for 4,000 years and is still fundamental to the religions of 3.8 billion people in the Islamic, Jewish, and Christian faiths. I want to pause here. I cannot emphasize enough that this comparison is not offered as a judgment of anyone's religion or beliefs. As a matter of fact, people in these religions are doing their own work to reframe this story through the lens of creation care. That is their work. Ours is to flip judgment into understanding. These two stories, Genesis and Skywoman, side by side, shine a light on something which was hidden, which can help us understand ourselves better. Can you see the fingerprints of Genesis in our reactions to the climate crisis? It almost makes sense that a people in perpetual war with nature would not be concerned about one more battle. Knowing that they were created in God's image, they are confident that mankind will beat this one. The fact that we have drastically changed the earth, that's our mission, right? But even those concerned about the planet and were worried about climate change are addressing it from within the Genesis paradigm. For example, Genesis people are about rules, obedience, and blame, while Skywoman seems to look more for balance and understanding. Genesis people look to the God-like minds of men for technological solutions. But how could any of us do otherwise? We have no collective story to show us another way. Even our science explanations are barely a few lifetimes old. But we must have been indigenous at some time. Where are those stories? In my 20s, I searched for these stories and discovered the goddess religions. The Venus of Willendorf, a 4-inch clay goddess figurine, is estimated to have been made around 25,000 years ago. Some images and figurines are dated 30,000 years ago. We can't be sure what those cultures were actually like, but they definitely seem female-oriented and connected to the earth and fertility. So, for 20 to 30,000 years before the Bible, we all did live closer to the Skywoman story. So what happened to our earth stories and cultures? According to Joseph Campbell in The Power of Myth, it took 2,000 years of brutal attacks from the Semitic tribes from the south and the Indo-European tribes from the north to wipe out these earth-based cultures. Campbell's theory is that as these were herding tribes and always on the move, seeking new land and coming into conflict with the people already on those lands, this sounds familiar, they brought gods of war and thunderbolts like Yahweh and Zeus. By 1705 BC, he says it was over. We live in the ruins of the Genesis story. We brought the world to the brink of habitat collapse. We can't seem to figure out how to live in harmony with our planet. We can barely figure out how to live in harmony with each other. But that isn't quite true, is it? We do know what to do. But like the characters in a Greek tragedy, we carry on in our doomed roles as if we have no choice. Why isn't science enough? Well, science is the language of facts and knowledge. The story is the language of wisdom, and story creates identity. Wisdom is what we seem to be lacking. How can we create a new story and find a new path when we're so many thousands of years removed from our own roots in nature? The answer is hiding in plain sight. Despite hundreds of years of oppression by Western culture, Indigenous people have survived, and they have something important to offer us. Indigenous peoples have been on the front lines of stopping new oil pipelines, such as the Line 3 protests happening right now in the treaty territory of the Anishinaabe peoples. The Anjoar people of the Amazon brought together Western leaders to form a partnership, the Pachamama Alliance, to help the West dream a new dream in order to save the Amazon. Even researchers at the Project Drawdown have identified Indigenous land management as playing a critical role in reversing global warming. As Indigenous people around the world lead us in action, they are also offering us their stories as a gift to save us all. The story of Skywoman is so comforting and grounded. Can we just take it up as our own creation story? Well, no. It does not come from our tradition, our experience, or our culture. We must create a new story for ourselves. But we can borrow some of the principles that Kimmerer shares from her tradition. 4 foundational principles to this worldview include, number 1, all our relations. The plants and the animals are our elders, here long before us, and if we learn to listen to their language, they can guide us. So imagine biomimicry infused with spirit as our default research. Imagine, more importantly, an end to species loneliness. 2, reciprocity. The earth takes care of us, but we must also actively care for the earth. We can see ourselves as partners and healers of the natural world. As we consume, we plant and nurture as well. 3, the honorable harvest. It's a set of principles that balance our need to consume with our relationship to our non-human relatives. Here are a few of the guidelines. Never take the first. Never take the last. Take only what you need. Never take more than half and leave some for others. Sustain the ones who sustain you, and the earth will last forever. It's almost too painful to think of our country if we had followed these few simple principles. The clear cuts that would now be at least half virgin forest, the species that would have never been fished or hunted to extinction, without thousands of pages of regulations. Looking forward, can you imagine capitalism with honor organized around these principles? Finally, her definition of Indigenous gives us a path to citizenship. To be Indigenous is to be of a place, to belong to a place, to know it and care for it so it's even better for our children and grandchildren. Kimmerer says we can learn to be Indigenous, to fit ourselves to a place, instead of fitting all the earth to ourselves. With a new story, we could create a path to finally belong to this land. We could commit to harvest and consume with honor. We could see regenerative agriculture, not just as science, but as a relationship of reciprocity with all our relations. In my mind, Skywoman is the big sister. She takes Eve's hand and leads her back to Turtle Island. Skywoman says, "Your exile is over, my dear one. You're safe with me. But I need your help. We must work together, as our children have lost their way." How does Eve respond? How does Adam respond? Our actions are writing that story right now. Thank you.
Mother, I feel you under my feet. Mother, I feel you. Mother, I hear your heartbeat. Mother, I hear you. Mother, I feel you under my feet. Mother, I feel you. Mother, I hear your heartbeat. Mother, I hear you. Hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, ho. Hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, ho. Mother, I feel you under my feet. Mother, I hear your heartbeat. Mother, I feel you under my feet. Mother, I hear your heartbeat. Hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, ya, hey ya, hey ya, ho. Hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, ho. Hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, ya, hey ya, hey ya, ho. Hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, ho. Mother, I hear you in the river song. Eternal waters flowing on and on. Mother, I hear you in the river song. Eternal waters flowing on and on. Hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, ya, hey ya, hey ya, ho. Hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, ho. Hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, ya, hey ya, hey ya, ho. Hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, ho. Father, I see you when the eagle flies. The light of the Spirit gonna take us higher. Father, I see you when the eagle flies. The light of the Spirit gonna take us higher. Hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, ya, hey ya, hey ya, ho. Hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, ho. Hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, ya, hey ya, hey ya, ho. Hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, ho.
Will you join me as we unite our voices to recite the words to extinguish our chalice, words known within our hearts and can be found displayed upon your screen? We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
May we walk today out into a world that is fully alive, surrounded by our relations of every species. May we take joy in releasing the burden of dominion and rest into fitting ourselves to this place. As the Navajo blessing goes, may you walk in beauty. May we walk today
Whoop.
Hello, hello. Wonderful.
Hello.
Wonderful service.
Hi, Linda.
And where's Beck? She's got to be there somewhere.
There's
I'm up here.
Let's give her some applause.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Beck.
Fabulous service, Beck. So good.
I just can't emphasize enough how wonderful that book is, Braiding Sweetgrass. You know, I took 240 pages and just pulled out